everyone a very warm welcome to this very special series that we are doing on for International Women's Day, where we talk to path breakers in their own fields. A few Olympic cycles before the Manu Bhakas and the Apurvi Chandelas and the Anjum Mudgils of the world made their presence felt on the shooting ranges of the world. There was a group of women from Maharashtra with rifles in tow who were making waves in the sport of shooting. Today, I have with me somebody who was at the Olympic final at Athens in 2004, and since then she has become a junior national team coach. She has become a senior national team coach and a high performance director. She was at the Tokyo Olympics with a lot of our shooters. She was at the Tokyo Paralympics with a lot of our shooters. So she's seen the sport of shooting evolve from every aspect possible. Uh, Thank you so much for doing this with us. I have with me Suma Shirur. Thank you so much for doing this, Suma.
Thank you, Amit, for the invite.
Yeah. Suma, I wanted to understand. You're somebody who's back when you started doing this shooting. I don't think there were a lot of people you had to look up to. In terms of just women role models. So can you just talk to us about that journey a bit, starting off and then becoming somebody who was competing for India suddenly?
So, Amit, you're taking me back, I think, 30 years down the road. And it was an interesting start for me. It was an interesting start of the sport because I think that was a time when really nobody knew about shooting as an Olympic sport. And even in the state championships, we had very, very few women shooters. Literally, the number of participants in the state were like 5, 6, 7, not more than that. So, but I think what we had at that point of time is a lot of energy and a lot of drive. And with shooting, I had found my passion. And the moment I held my rifle, the moment I went to the range and I had the gun in my hand, I felt like a sense of belonging. I felt like this is what I want to do, and this is where I belong. So that was how I started. And but along with me, we were also a bunch of girls, and all with an NCC background, because in those days shooting ranges were not there. Only the one parent association and the state association, and that's about it. So all of us basically came from NCC backgrounds. And then they were fun times. It was more like an adventure, not knowing what it is, not knowing where it's going to take us. It was more like an adventure, but it was definitely something that we loved doing, something that we enjoyed. And so all of us got embarked on this journey. And as I got more and more deeper into the sport, I realized that I was madly in love with it, and it was like a passion. And somewhere behind, I had this burning desire that I want to go to the Olympics. How? I don't know. I had no idea of the path, it's just that I want to go. So I said then, but how do we do it? So it was just make the most of, every day. And so it was really like walking, it was like a no man's land, and I didn't know where I'm headed. And that's how it was then. And I would say, because shooting was not known, it took me like 6 to 7 years only in gathering things, gathering the knowledge, the know-how, gathering the equipment. Nothing was available here. Everything had to be imported. So I think in my journey, I wasted a lot of time in just getting things together. And of course, once I had everything, and then it was, I'm glad, I could make it all the way to the Olympics after such a, slow start and after such a bumpy start. And so I'm glad that, it definitely took me 10 years and 10 years of passion, desire, a lot of obstacles, a lot of courage to eventually be there at the Olympics. And when I look at things now, definitely, I think that's the biggest change, and that's the biggest change that I've always wanted to see. That today, if you have the talent, I do not want youngsters to waste 6 to 7 years the way we did in just getting things together. So
You spoke about this slow start that you had, because I think you said that 10 years of your life you only just tried to figure out how this whole thing has to be done and done right. I wanted to understand how much of this slow start also was because of this perception that, shooting guns, it's a man's pursuit and things like that. Were those that sort of perceptions back when you started? And has that changed now, basically?
when I started, of course, it was mainly only majority men in the sport, men in the game, and we were very, very few women. And of course, we enjoyed a lot of attention because we are really a handful. But I think initially, uh, I kind of, just because we were a few women, I don't think they were like, it was not a major problem, and it was, people were willing to help, and in fact they kind of encouraged us, and they were willing to help, help, and they wanted women to get into the sport. So thankfully, in the sport of shooting, I wouldn't say that, the roadblock, we never had any roadblocks, because I was a woman. And but yes, overall, I think the sport was not at a very was at a very nascent stage. Things were not available. So overall, I would say the shooting scene was at not at the levels that we see today. But yes, I would say that as a woman, it took me some time to convince my family, and because of course, they're worried that what is she doing, what is she going to do, what and just like everything is expensive. Shooting, of course, is expensive. Guns are expensive. So I had to buy a rifle, and then so I told my dad I want to buy a rifle. Imagine asking for 2 lakh rupees, 30 years ago. And so, and that too, for something that nobody had a clue, nobody knew what Olympic sport is. So I said I want the money, and then of course they were so worried. And then, but me, with my convincing abilities, I told them that you give me the money for the rifle, whatever, as far as my wedding goes and my jewelry goes, all that, I'll take care of it. You don't spend on any of that, but give me a rifle. So that is how I kind of managed to find my way. And of course, they had to give in, and I'm glad. So eventually I got my rifle, I got everything, I got my jewelry, I got everything. So so that is how it started. But I think initially it was a lot of convincing, and I was very, very stubborn that I want this, that's it. So I think after a bumpy start, everyone had to relent, and took it up.
When you spoke about this incredibly this handful of shooters, I'm assuming you're talking about people like Dipali Deshpande, yourself, and even Anjali Bhagwat, who all just suddenly emerged from Maharashtra and started to dominate in a sense.
Yes, we were like fondly called the poultry, in
The
in
poetry.
in the association, because we were always together. And so me, Anjali, Dipali, and Rakhi, Leena, Anuja, and we were a few of us. And but I would say I never felt like I had any issues as a woman, probably because we were all together and we have a very strong voice. So I think individually we may not have been heard. Now, when I look back, I feel had I been on my own individually, maybe it would have been a lot more difficult. Maybe I wouldn't have been heard as much as I was being a part of this group. So I think we did a lot of things together. And together we felt very strong. Together, we felt like we are heard, and together we it made us feel very strong. It made us feel like yes, we can do it, and we were all learning. And together, I think we were great friends off the court. On the court, we were very on the lane, we were very competitive because obviously we are competing against each other. But off the court, of course, there was a lot of we used to we would help each other, and we were learning together. We would share a lot. So I think because we were all together, this journey of me as a woman in a sport that was predominantly men, I think that journey really was smooth, and it was fun, it was enjoyable, and together I think we could really take ourselves and chart history, along the way, I think.
You spoke about charting history in a sense. After you, have you noticed that obviously now we are seeing a lot of these women shooters. I think the ratio, even the IOC wants the ratio to be 50-50. But even in an Indian perspective, I think at Tokyo most of our medalists were women, or at least as many medal contenders were in shooting, particularly were women. So, how did that change kind of come about, and how much do you see yourself as a role model for these younger generation? I know you are a coach and a high performance director for the junior guys and the senior guys also. But then, as a role model, how do you see your position in the Indian setup?
I think as we started making a name for ourselves and the sport along with us, me making it to the Olympic finals, and later on, and also the medals we won en route the Olympic finals. I also had the world record, and we were the first ones, I think, to win medals at the Commonwealth Games in Manchester. I think first time ever that shooting won so many medals, and also the women were equally, we were equal members in terms of medalists. So. And also in the Asian Games, we had won medals. So I think by the time I went there, we had already made a mark. People looked up to us as somebody, as women shooters who can actually bring glory to the country and medals. So, and yes, I would like to thank the media at that point of time for really encouraging us, supporting us in a big way. And because of this, a lot of women shooters got into the sport, and in fact, I had a lot of moms would call me, and they said that we want our daughters to kind of get into the sport. We want them to be like you. So that made me feel very good, and that's when I felt like, nahi, jo bhi kiya, it was like worth it. It's making an impact, and it's making more and more young women come out of it, and moms calling up saying that I want my daughters to go. So I think it was a wave, and it was a belief that we sent across that this is something that a woman can do. This is something that young girls can take it up as well as much as the boys. And that's how slowly had more and more and more women shooters getting into the sport, and now there's absolutely no looking back, and so I think we did make an impact at that point of time.
Okay, that I think is a great note to end this conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time out and talking to us about not just your journey but also the journey of Indian shooting, and women in Indian shooting through the years, starting with you and others like Anjali Bhagwat and Dipali Deshpande. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ahmed.